Hello. Welcome to our weekly live. I am Kirsten Carey, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today about the 5 tools to shut down overwhelm. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling it, right? Our clients are feeling it. We have people all around us that are saying that it feels like a lot right now. This is the time of the year where a lot of things are coming down to the end of the year, to all the holidays. They're coming down to this election that I'm just so tired of hearing about. And all of the things are kind of coming at us at once. And the last couple of years have been shaking out very differently. I still think that there is an anxiety vibration that is going through since COVID. People are still getting used to getting back into work. We actually have a client who took an early retirement option because the very large company, and you would know the name, that she works for was calling people back into having to physically be in the office permanently. Where before, during COVID, they were out of the office, then they were coming back a little bit. And she just got to a point where she was like, I don't want to come back. I don't want to be in the office. I can do my job from my house. But now companies are seeing a slide in the amount of productivity that they're seeing with people who are not working in their offices like they were before. So there's a shift going on, and people aren't used to being around a lot of people again. The internet is changing that. So we're getting overwhelmed in a different way than we ever have before. And the idea of overwhelm is that you are already in a state of fight or flight. So you're already feeling vibrations of anxiety. You're already feeling vibrations that there's too much coming at you. You're already feeling the sense that you can't get into a calm space. When you actually get into a true overwhelmed space, it's because you've been vibrating in the idea that you are in danger for too long. So overwhelm, the step that happens after overwhelm, when you've been vibrating in overwhelm too much, is burnout. So let's talk about overwhelm. Let's talk about how we can back out of overwhelm, not fall into that, and that there's 5 tools that we can really shut it down. The tools I'm going to be giving you, I'm going to be telling you about how they can be used in an immediate, acute situation of overwhelm, and how you can utilize them for long term so you can start re-regulating your system, reactivating the calmness that you need to feel balanced and grounded, so that the long-term burnout doesn't come back, or the long-term overwhelm doesn't get you and turn into burnout. So we're looking at short-term and long-term on this one. So let's talk about the first thing. More than ever before, we are utilizing technology in a way to alert us when something is happening. But these alerts are actually working against us in the long term. What it's doing is we have our computers, we have our phones, we have things alerting us and bing, 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 or putting things on our screen and coming at us, to the point where every time you look at your phone, every time you see that alert, every time you see that flash on the screen on your computer or your phone, it takes you out of the moment that you're in, shifts perspective, and has you now shift your thought process and your emotional process to be focused on something else that wasn't in front of you before. So I strongly recommend that you learn how to best utilize your alert systems. Now, I have an iPhone. I'm a big fan of Apple products. I'm not saying you have to have an Apple product to make this work for you, but I have gone in and managed my alerts within my system. We have our clients do this immediately. You turn off all alerts, all of them, and then you go back through the ones that you know you need. Maybe you have specific calendar alerts that you need to have pop up, but I bet you anything that you don't need to have almost all of the ones that you have alerting you. Because if you were relying constantly on somebody, it's like being asleep and having someone clap really loud above your head. You're going to jerk awake. Your central nervous system, your alert system, is going to go on high alert, and it's going to put your central nervous system into high alert. We're in danger. We need to pay attention at an acute level. Every single time, if you tried to go to bed and every single time you were asleep for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, someone did some loud noise above your head and woke you up every time, your ability to actually go back to sleep would be diminished. And even if you did fall asleep, you wouldn't be getting into the good theta state, the good balanced sleep, the restorative, re-energized sleep that you really needed to get into to actually rest and repair. So think about that in your daily waking life. If every 15 minutes, every half hour, every 2 hours even, someone's clapping above your head and you are trying to figure out what's going on, what's this alert, what's this thing, it's actually stopping you from staying in flow. It's messing up your central nervous system. It is actually messing up your thought process. It's taking you out of the ability to feel grounded and safe. So every single time you see one of those, it actually activates your brain differently. And then you get into a pattern of activating that brain. So every time you go into this high alert, whether you feel it or not, it activates that side of your brain. So I strongly encourage you, for short-term and long-term success here, is to learn how to utilize the activation centers in your phone or your computer. Shut them all off and go back in and make sure that you have alerts. And make sure they're not freaking your system out either with high buttons and bing, bing, bing. Because the other thing that also happens is if you have that happening over time, you actually become desensitized to noticing them, but it still sets off your central nervous system. So you're more likely to miss the appointment because you don't even notice the alert anymore from a conscious standpoint. But from a subconscious standpoint, you do, and it sets you off to be on high alert for danger. So get highly good at learning how to shut down your alerts or only utilize them as the minimum that you need. The second thing is to start scheduling the things that actually are important. And I'm going to tell you what I think is important. Downtime is actually important. Blocking out your calendar so that nobody can get into that space in your calendar. And when you see it on your calendar, you don't go, oh yeah, I have that time available. You actually want to set your calendar or your schedule up in a way where you block out specific time for your own healing, for your own downtime, for your own connections with other people. When we feel connected and seen and heard, we are more likely to feel calm, safe, and important. Like we feel like we matter when someone is seeing and noticing and hearing us. But if we don't schedule our own needs, making sure you're scheduling time to take bathroom breaks, I'm not kidding. Some of you don't even do that. Taking time to take a shower, taking time to rest, taking time to make yourself food and actually sit down and eat that food. You should be scheduling those things and using them like your life depends on those moments. It doesn't have to be hours and hours in the day. But if you are not at least giving yourself 20 minutes to sit down and eat something, and you're not working on something else in the process, driving to another appointment, doing some other things, you're just sitting down, eating, digesting the food, that's going to have a huge impact on where your body believes it's safe or where it's not. So start scheduling time during your day so that nothing else can get into that time. Now, obviously, if there's emergency, then you use that time. But we think too many things are emergencies. Too many other people are more important. Oh, it's just lunch. Oh, it's just a shower. Oh, it's just whatever the thing is. Once you start utilizing this and you get really good at it, you'll actually get more done in the day, even though you were spending less time on those things you need to get done, because you're giving your system, your central nervous system, your body, your digestive system, your healing system, you're supporting your immune system. That will actually put you in a space where you can actually be more present, more focused, more active, have more energy than you would otherwise. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but if you give yourself more time, you can get more done in the times you leave available to get work, kid stuff, family stuff, other life events to happen. So start utilizing your calendar to serve you. One of our clients, she's a professional golfer, golf pro. She runs a golf course and she works with very high level athletes as well. One of her biggest challenges when she first came to us, she was gaining weight. Her thyroid was out of balance. She was having a lot of dysfunction issues when it came to physical, mental, and emotional, and she just felt frazzled all the time. The very first thing I worked with her on was scheduling herself on her calendar first and then scheduling everything else around it. It was like, she seriously was like, this is never going to work. I'm like, well, if you believe it's never going to work, it's never going to work. And we sat down and we plugged through her calendar and said, what are you doing? And she was trying to shove herself in to the slivers of time that she had during the week. And of course, those slivers of time would just get run over by everything else. Once she started scheduling herself first and then wrapping everything else around it, and she started holding boundaries around her own time and her schedule, her thyroid started regulating, her weight started balancing, her hormones started balancing, and she was like literally and figuratively able to breathe during each day. So her mind wasn't racing on, what did I forget? Oh my God, there's something else. She never felt present. The more present she got, the more symptoms went away and the more balance she found. Scheduling yourself first might be really unusual for a lot of you because you're not used to doing that. If you grew up in a household where you had parents who weren't consistent, you had a parent who was an alcoholic, you had a parent who was a substance abuser, you had a parent who was highly dysregulated herself or himself. You were used to living in an environment where there was no schedule, there was no routine, there was no commonplace. So you were constantly on high alert to be ready for whatever the chaos was that was being thrown at you. You don't even know what it's like to be able to manage that schedule on your own. And sometimes you feel out of balance when you start doing this because it's so out of your norm. You're not just waiting for the next chaos moment to come. You start scheduling yourself. You start finding that balance, feeling that groundedness. It's amazing how life just feels that much easier. And the easier life feels, and the less you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, the less overwhelm you feel because your body's in a space where you can handle these things because they don't happen constantly, right? It is a shift in your paradigm completely. And these are things that we work with our clients on one by one because they need the shift to say, wait a minute, it feels so out of place to hold a boundary around my time. And part of that is a subconscious trauma that you experience from a really young age, and you just never knew how to get back out of it because your normal is chaos. So let's start looking at your calendar and let's start looking at your schedule and let's start scheduling things and putting a high priority on your own healing needs. That would include, again, eating, taking a shower, time for you. All right, so this taps really nicely into number 3. So number 3 is your routine. Now, the subconscious is constantly looking for what is normal, and what it thinks is normal is what you do on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that it's healthy. Doesn't mean that it's good for you. It means it's used to it. And the subconscious is constantly looking at what you're doing and trying very quickly to move that thing into a routine so that it can rinse and repeat and do it over and over and over at a subconscious level. It takes a lot less energy for it to utilize subconscious resources to put you into a routine. When something is new, it's exciting and fun, but it actually uses more resources when it's new, which is why a lot of us fight things that are new. Our subconscious says, oh, I don't like that because it's not our familiar and it's not our normal, so we must not like it. Because what it knows is that whatever you've been repeating and doing apparently has kept you alive so far. And again, the subconscious doesn't care if it's good for you. The subconscious doesn't care that it is healthy for you. It just cares that to this point, we've stayed alive. So what we've done to this point must be right. So let's keep doing that. So it fights to stay in that routine and that know-how, in that normal. So the routine becomes a really important part. What's been really helpful for a lot of our clients is we sit down and we look at what their routine is. And this goes down to what you physically are doing in a routine, but also what are your thoughts? What are your routine thoughts? And if your routine thoughts are, I'm not good enough and I'm not worth it, and doing everybody else's stuff before my own is part of your routine, your thought process routine, your paradigm, you will continue to thinking those things because your subconscious believes that's part of what's been keeping you safe. So making those shifts sometimes feels harder than it needs to because letting go of the idea that you could be in danger by thinking that you're good, thinking that you're worth it, could really shift your entire system to think that you are actually in danger. So there's techniques and tools that we use with our clients to help shift that. So one of the things I want you to start looking at is just what's my routine from a physical, what do I do actually literally during the day time, like moment to moment? Like what's my mornings look like? What's my afternoon looks like? What's my routine before bed look like? What do dinners look like? What does my sleep routine look like? And sometimes your routine is creating chaos before you go to bed. Sometimes your routine is having to watch something with a bright screen before you go to bed that actually sets you up to not get into a good restorative sleep. Sometimes those things are waking up and just grabbing your phone the second you wake up to see what chaos may have happened by the time you woke up in the morning, and then letting your day be driven by who texted you first. That is not the best way to get out of overwhelm, because now you don't even know what's coming at you at any given time, and you're giving up your control and your power to someone or something else. So let's start looking at the routines and then creating routines to help support, which is why I really want you to look at your calendars, and I really want you to look at the alerts that come up on your phone and start creating new routines that help support the life experience that you want. So the routine becomes really important, and the subconscious routine that has been laying in there for a long time that you've just been running off of that you weren't even aware of, that's one of the things we want to bring to the surface. We have tools that can get people there faster, but right now, just start kind of having that around you and look at your calendar, look at your day, look at your past week. Look at what seasons do for you. Like, oh, this time of the year we do this time of the year we do this. What's the routine that you fall into? And how can we manage that routine with intention and with purpose to get the life experience you want? It's a lot easier to work with somebody outside of you because we're not emotionally connected to what you're doing and why. I can't tell you the number of clients who I've given an excuse, they've given excuses over why they have to stay in this routine. And I'm like, why? Well, because we've always done it that way. And I said, well, why? And they don't know. I'll tell you a story. Speaking of routine, so my former mother-in-law, she wasn't one of my biggest fans. Let's just put it that way. I went to my former husband's family's house for dinner one night, and it was one of the very first times that I met them. And they had a lot of food that I was not used to seeing. They had a Polish background, I'm an Irish background. The food was very different, but I was trying to learn. I was trying to play along, and I was trying to be the good soon-to-be daughter-in-law because we weren't married yet. And there's a lot of food that I was unfamiliar with. And I was like, oh, what is this? What is this? And so I was trying to take a little bit of everything, right? But there was this plate, and it didn't match anything else. It was this tiny little plate, didn't match any of the other dishware that we were eating off of. So it stuck out to me, but it kept getting passed. And there was, how many of us were there? There were eight or nine of us at the dinner table. So big dinner table, and this plate with this sliced up hard-boiled egg was passed to me. And I really don't like hard-boiled eggs. The mouthfeel, the flavor, there's nothing about them that I like. So I was like 100% like, nope, not doing this. And I just kept passing it down, and then it would get passed back to me. It got passed across the table to me. I'm like, no, thank you. And I kept putting it down. Well, what I did not know, and what my former husband did not clue me in on, is that this sliced egg had special meaning. I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that. Nobody else mentioned it. But what I did not know was happening is that everyone at the table was getting angry with everyone, really more my former mother-in-law, was getting angry with me every time I didn't take a slice of this hard-boiled egg. I had no idea that I had been ruining one of the many things apparently that I did to ruin this relationship with her. Years later, we get engaged. And we go to my in-laws to tell them. And my mother-in-law says, no, like she's so upset. So my former husband takes her aside. He's like, Mom, what is wrong? And she's just angry. She won't talk about it the next day. He goes back, he tries to talk to her. He comes back. He's like, okay, well, apparently she's still really upset because you never took a slice of the blessed egg. And I'm like, what blessed egg? What are we talking about? And he said, well, there's the blessed egg. It's the hard-boiled egg that my mother always has at any of the dinners that we have to celebrate any of the religious holidays, the Christian religious holidays. There's this blessed egg. And I'm like, I come from a long line of Catholics. I have friends that are Christian. I've never heard of this. So I went to one of my girlfriends who is Greek Orthodox. So she seems to always know everything about all the things. And I said, what the blessed egg? I tell her a story. She says, oh, no, you didn't eat the blessed egg. And I said, no, what's the blessed egg? She said, well, way long ago, before refrigeration, people would want to have the food that they were going to eat for a particular religious holiday dinner or meal. They wanted it blessed by the pastor or the priest or the religious figure. And she said, well, people didn't want to bring their their entire meals with them. So over time, it turned into this hard-boiled egg that people would show up at church with, and they would have it blessed by the priest, and then that would become the blessed egg. And I was like, oh. So I went to my former mother-in-law and I said, hey, Tom let me in on the fact that this was an issue and I'm so sorry and I didn't mean to offend you, and that's not something that my family has ever done, but I'm sorry that I offended you, and can you tell me why you guys always have this blessed egg? Well, now I knew the backstory, at least from my girlfriend's perspective, but I wanted to hear her story. And I love hearing traditions, and I love hearing about stories like that, and I want to hear the backstory. And she said, what do you mean? I said, why do you have this blessed, like, what's the story behind it? What's the tradition in your family and where does it come from? And she got like angrier with me, if that was even possible. And she said, I don't know. It's just the blessed egg and you just eat it. That's just the way we've always done it. And you're not doing it. And I said, well, again, sorry about that, but why do you do it? And she says, and now it became me questioning her. So it became a whole storyline, right? But she didn't know. She just went along with it because that's what you always do. And the reason I'm telling you this story is not to make fun of my former mother-in-law. And again, there's a reason it's a former situation. It's because a lot of us do that, where we've done something not because we understand it and we do it because it has meaning to it. We do it because we've always done it that way. So I want you to start looking at some of the things that you're doing and ask yourself, why am I doing it that way? What's the story behind this? What's the reason behind this? Why do I do these things? And when you can start looking at this from a place of curiosity, which my former mother-in-law did not get, that I was there in a place of curiosity. She thought I was questioning her. Place of curiosity, and you're in wonderment of, why do I do these things? I wonder where this started from. Who was the first person I saw doing this? You can start to get a better understanding of where it came from. And maybe this routine of yours, maybe this thing that you do all the time isn't necessarily yours to have. It doesn't serve you. Maybe it served the people before you. You know, there's a long adage of the woman who, makes the roast for dinner at night. And she gets the roast and she chops off the edges of the roast and she puts it in the oven and she puts it on. And her granddaughter comes in one day and she sees the grandmother making this roast. And she says, Grandma, why do you cut the edges off the roast? And she said, I don't know. I've just always done it. So fortunately, her mother was still alive. And she went back to her mother and she said, Mom, why do we always cut the edges off the roast? And she goes, oh, I always did that because my roasting pan was too small. And a lot of the times the butcher would only give it to you this size. And I would always have to cut the edges off so it fit into my roasting pan. Now, what's interesting is that the great-grandmother did this because it served her to fit into the roast. The grandmother now did it because her mother taught her, and she didn't ask why. Now she is. Her daughter then did it. Now her granddaughter was finally asking questions. But they went back and they were curious about why we did this. Now, of course, if your roasting pan is bigger, then you don't cut the edges off, right? So the question is, what are you cutting open? What are you cutting off? What are you not getting because you haven't asked? And with curiosity, why do I do this thing? Right? So let's start looking at your routine and saying, what within this routine is not serving me anymore? And then start creating a routine with intention and purpose. Number 4, ask for help. Learn how to ask for help. Those of us that tend to be accomplished people, we've had successes in our lives, we happen to be high performers, we're the one that everybody leans on for help. We tend to not ask for help when we need it. And it's funny because though I teach these concepts, I still fall into this story sometimes of, I don't need help, I don't need to ask, I don't want to bother people. And I was having a particular moment this weekend and I was struggling with something and I was trying to figure it out on my own. And I thought, my 2 best girlfriends, I'm like, let me just message them because I know they could talk me through this and I just need a perspective outside of myself. And I'm like, no, I don't want to bother them. I know her. My one girlfriend's daughter was home from school this weekend and her son had homecoming and my other girlfriend was off doing stuff with her grandchildren. And I was just like, and for an hour, I ruminated on this idea of like, I should ask for help, but why? No, because I don't want to bother. I'm like, what is wrong, Kirsten? You teach this. You live this. Every time you've asked for help and they come up, they help you, you get through it. It's usually a lot easier. You don't ruminate as long. So I texted and said, hey, either one of you have a moment. I just need a minute. And within 5 seconds, I had 2 texts back and said, I'm available right now from both of them. We jumped on a call. I explained what was going on. They mirrored back to me. I felt so much better since then. And a whole bunch of other things dropped into place. And it's a lot of it because energetically, I let go of the idea that I had to figure it out alone. We do not actually do well as a people when we're completely alone or creating isolated situations. So I want you to start looking at the overwhelm a lot of the times is because we're isolating. We're not reaching out, asking for help. We're not doing it in a way where we're actually open to feedback, which is the second part of that. Sometimes we think we're reaching out for help, but we're not open to the feedback. Or a lot of times the help that we need is just someone hearing us, making us feel seen and heard. We don't want them to fix it necessarily. We just need to get it out of our head, process it. And my one girlfriend always says, it's not complaining, it's processing. And she's 100% correct. The way that women especially work is we are more verbal in our processing. So we tend to need to work it out that way. And it's getting it out of our system so it's not just up here. And then you feel it yourself seen, you feel heard, you felt important, you feel like you matter. It's amazing how the overwhelm dissipates very quickly after that. And then number 5, I'm going to teach you 3 different breathing techniques that are going to help and can help in the moment, but also can help in the long term. So if you are, first of all, the most important part of breathing throughout the day and at night is that you're breathing with your mouth closed. So many of us don't realize that our mouths drop open because we're too congested. We don't realize that we're congested. And then our mouth drops open during the day and we're actually breathing more air in through our mouths than our nose. Our nose is actually a whole filtration system to get toxins out and a whole bunch of other debris and issues that are coming in through the air system. And most people, we're not living in great air quality anymore. So when we're breathing in through our mouths and not our nose, we're actually diminishing the amount of filtration that is going on, which actually causes more issues within our sinuses. It causes more issues with our throat. It actually will have an impact on our thyroid, believe it or not. It has an impact on our digestive systems. So the first breathing thing is to breathe with your mouth closed. And there are things that you can buy, or you can just use regular old tape to start actually closing your mouth and having a piece of tape over it. So you can still open it if you really need to, but it helps train you to sleep with your mouth closed. So start paying attention to the amount of time that you're breathing with your mouth open. So that's the first piece of the breathing. The second specific type of breathing, if you are in straight overwhelm and you're in kind of like a panic, anxiety, and you just feel like you can't get grounded, there is a box breathing technique that works really well. Navy SEALs actually use it to calm their central nervous systems down, especially before they go into some very high alert situation. So it's a 4-4-4 technique where you're going to think of, I always think of it as a box, which is why they call it box. So you're going to breathe in for a count of 4. You're going to hold for a count of 4. You're going to breathe out for a count of 4, and you're going to hold for a count of 4. So if you think of it this way, you're breathing in for a count of 4, you're holding for a count of 4, you're breathing out for a count of 4, and you're holding for a count of 4. In for 4, hold for 4, down and out for 4, and hold for 4. If you really struggle with this technique, you probably are shallow breathing so much you don't realize it, and you're probably breathing with your mouth open more frequently than you realize it. But to do this for just a full minute, you can build yourself up to 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, but a full minute can help you incredibly get out of that overwhelmed state, that anxiety state, sometimes that panic state. The second specific tool that I use with clients with breathing, it's a 7-4-8 technique. This is something that I always use with them a little bit longer term when it's not quite as an immediate need, but it can help in the immediacy. But it's one to help build up the amount of oxygen your body is taking in and how your body is managing the out breath. So you're going to breathe in for a count of 7. You're going to hold for a count of 4. And you're going to breathe out for a count of 8. So in for 7, hold for 4, out for 8. So 7, 4, 8. In for 4, hold 7, hold for 4, out for 8. Now, again, if you struggle with this one, especially if you're struggling with the out breath being longer than the in breath, this is a good indication that you are mouth breathing, that you are shallow breathing, and you're not actually fully taking in and absorbing the amount of oxygen that you really need during the day, which will put you in a state of overwhelm and it'll put you into a state of imbalance and dysfunction. So you'll be dysregulated throughout the day and not even know it. So you're always kind of vibrating in a dysregulated state. Okay, so we're going to start shutting down our alerts. We're going to schedule things with purpose so that our life and our healing and our balance is scheduled, the things that we need, and then scheduling life around it. We're going to start creating routines that support us, but getting curious about the routines, the physical routines, as well as maybe the emotional and mental routines that we fall into. So we can actually start utilizing tools that help change those things. Number 4, you're going to start asking for help, learning how to ask for help and receiving it once it's in front of you. And number 4, close mouth. Use the 4-4-4 box breathing technique or use the 7-4-8 breathing technique. All right. So now that you kind of have more of an understanding of the 5 tools to help shut down your overwhelm, I want you to think a little bit more long-term. So we have a couple more tickets left. I have an event coming up this weekend. It's actually in person, and I'm wildly excited about that because we haven't done really anything in person in a long time. So go to nourish123challenge.com. We have a couple more tickets still available for our in-person event in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're going to be feeding you lunch on both days. It's 10 to 4. And I'm going to be taking you through 2 days to re-regulate your system, to use neuroresilience techniques to help crack your body over into an emotional state that is regulated, that is balanced, that is grounded, and get you out of the day-to-day nonsense that a lot of us have been in for a long time. It's going to help regulate your system. It's going to help set your hormones up to start balancing again. If any of you are struggling with any of that belly weight or that premenopausal, postmenopausal weight that starts to come on to us a lot of times in our 40s and 50s, it's going to help with that. It's going to help with pain. It's going to help with any of the challenges that you're really up against, that your immune system and your central nervous system are really struggling with right now. So this could be thyroid disorder, any of the autoimmune conditions where I used to have Hashimoto's and celiac disease, and I've reversed them both. You're dealing with excess weight, or you can't keep weight on. It's actually a lot of times for the same reason. If you're finding that you're allergic or highly sensitive to a lot of things, we're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to help you re-regulate your system in 2 days. You'll be there with other women who are high performers, who are successful people who really are struggling now to really get themselves back into a space where they don't burn out. So pop over to nourish123challenge.com. Again, it's in Scottsdale, South Scottsdale, right on the edge of Tempe, right off of Thomas and Scottsdale Roads. We'll be feeding you both days, totally gluten-free, completely dairy-free. We're going to be making sure you're getting the healthiest of foods. And I'm going to be taking you through 2 days of that. There's going to be special gifts for you when you're there. I'm going to have special speakers who are coming in that are going to be also amazing when it comes to skincare, when it comes to regulation of the body. So I've got this entire crew of people who will be there with us to help support us. But I will be taking you through these 2 full days in person. And I can't wait to see you there. There's a couple tickets left, so go grab them.